All right. Good day, everybody. My name is Rebecca Simon Peter. I'm the founder of Creating a Culture of Renewal, the author of Dream Like Jesus, and the convener of this most special gathering of congregational leaders. So welcome to day 5 of Congregations and COVID-19 Creative Ways to Stay Connected. This is a 30-minute lead and learn session for leaders as we are quickly, and I mean quickly, adjusting and pivoting to learning new ways of doing things. We've never been here before, have we? Now, you may have done online worship before, but not necessarily under these circumstances. So we've never experienced a global pandemic. We are all learning. We're all in that process. We're in a new world. And this morning I was thinking about when Abraham set off, to follow. God said, come and I'm going to show you this new place. And Abraham was like, I don't know where we're going, but he followed. I think about Moses leading his people out through the desert, out into the desert, through the Red Sea. There are biblical precedents for, I don't know where we're going, but let's trust God and let's stay together while we're doing it. So that's what we're up to. And we're together all this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to deal with congregational leadership specific kinds of questions. Before we dive in, though, I do want to say this: the world needs you. They need you. They need you to be creative. They need you to be loving. They need you to be present. They don't necessarily need you to know what you're doing, okay? They do need you to be present because they don't know what they're doing either. And there's something kind of comforting about being in it together. So that's the good news. And the other good news is that we have all kinds of resources available to us. Look at us. Here we are on Zoom. Many of you did Facebook Live for the first time this last weekend. We have the resources. We have each other. What we don't know, we can figure out together. So thank you for joining these life-giving, creative conversations as we find creative ways to stay connected. Let's begin with a word of prayer. And because today our topic is online communion, I wanted to read to you a very familiar passage that I hope will bring new comfort in this time. I'm going to read from Matthew chapter 26. While they were eating, Jesus took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat. This is my body." Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom." When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Gracious God, we give thanks for the story of Jesus, for the life, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus, for the covenant and the rituals and the fellowship that we have as we gather around this crucified and risen Savior. Guide us today, we pray, in our conversations, guide us in our ministries, and help us to feel your presence more deeply, more fully, and in unexpected and surprising ways. We reach out to you, God, even as we reach out to one another, and may we also reach deep within our souls to feel grounded and connected in these unsettling times. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So isn't it interesting that here we are approaching Palm Sunday, Holy Week, Easter? Did we ever think we might be doing Easter online? I got news. We're probably doing Easter online. So that'll be a whole other conversation to have. But let's just talk about Holy Communion because First Sunday is coming. So before we do that, though, I would just love to have you put something in the chat window. Did you do online worship last week? How did it go? What happened? What was the win for you? What did you learn? What did you discover? You don't have to say all of that, but put in something about how it's going for you as you're making this pivot and making this shift. We can learn from each other's comments. Great Zoom worship. Excellent. Good. Yeah, we can learn from each other's comments. So be generous with what you're sharing there as we are learning from each other in this wonderful community. Okay, did online, learned from last week. Excellent. Online worship, yes. Figuring out licensing so we can add other practices. Collaborating with other leaders. Facebook Live had some difficulty getting it going. Went fair, needed work on singing, yes. Well, isn't that always the way? There's just gonna be one little weak link And even if we were worshiping live like we always do, there would be something. Okay, so there's some terrific experiences there. Online sermon, children's message and music. Still learning, just did another test this morning. I think we're ready. Okay, very good. Very good. Virtual choir. That's interesting. It'd be fun to hear more about virtual choir. Yeah, we're just getting so creative because we have to. Because we have to. So I really appreciate all the ways that you folks are trying that. All right, so now let's talk about online communion. So the thing that strikes me most about communion is the word itself, Holy Communion, community, communion, deeply interconnected, right? And that's why there's been so much resistance over the years to online communion. In fact, I just did a quick Google search about online communion. There was stuff written in 2010, 2014, not as much in 2020, but the earlier stuff said, what? Are you kidding? Are you crazy? You can't do online communion because that undercuts the whole meaning of the community that's present in communion. Well, now we find ourselves in extremis, as Martin Luther might say. Back in 530, at the time of the Black Plague, there were all sorts of dispensations that were made liturgically because there needed to be. People didn't want to get together during the Black Plague. Well, I don't know exactly what sort of social distancing they practiced, but it was scary as all get out with the Black Plague. So they had to make dispensation. And the dispensation that was made was that anybody could perform a baptism. In extremis, anybody could perform a baptism. Now, you've probably been in that situation if you served, if you did CPE, if there was a baby, you know, that maybe was going to be dying, and you might have found yourself in some situations where you would do what theologically, liturgically, you might not normally do. We folks are in a time of in extremis, okay? So that whole thing about anybody can baptize, I don't know that we're at anybody can serve communion, but we're certainly at how can we be creative and how can we feel the flexibility of our covenantal life together so that we can practice this most holy means of grace. Well, I just read an article on UMC discipleship. You might want to check it out. It's called The Online Communion Dilemma. I can save you a little bit of time, though. It didn't have a lot of definitives. One thing that it did say, and I quote you here, Christ is the host of the table, not us, not you, not the church. Christ can be present in ways we haven't even imagined yet. In these unusual times, take thou authority. That was the end of the article, okay? So, you know, they gave us this side, that side, this side, that side. In the end, take thou authority, all right? So you have spiritual authority to figure out what works. In the meantime, I know the Western jurisdiction is coming up with an official statement. Other conferences are as well. You will want to check in locally to make sure that there are specific guidelines that are laid out for you that you can follow, that will make your life easier, that will make things clearer for you, that will get you out of, if you're in any sort of angst about, is it legal, is it kosher, is it complying with the book of discipline, check in with the local authorities, as it were. But in the meantime, UMC discipleship says, take that authority. So let's talk about how you're actually going to do it. Let's just say you're going to do some form of communion. So there are a couple of different ways to do this. One is where you actually have people together. This is the first one, where you have people together. And then the other one we're going to look at is when people are distributed like we are right now in our various locations online, whether it's Facebook Live, Zoom, whatever it is that you happen to be doing. Or if you're at the church live streaming and everybody's where they're at, okay? But the first one's everybody's all together. The second one is some form of distributed. Now, when it comes to everybody's all together, I would like you to remember drive-in movie theaters. Who remembers drive-in movie theaters? Okay. Who's been to a drive-in movie lately? Anybody? Oh, Denise has? Okay, well, they still have them in rural Iowa. I haven't even seen a drive-in movie theater in I don't know how long. Every so often I think, wouldn't it be fun to go to the drive-in movies? But I want you to think drive-in movies when it comes to drive-in communion. Here's one of the pictures. My friend Todd Anderson, who's a district superintendent in the Ohio River Valley District, some of you may know him. I don't think he's here today. He shared an idea with me, I think it was him, where you have the cars lined up all in rows, like think your parking lot, you're gonna make use of your parking lot, okay? So everybody comes, they park. They don't necessarily need to be 6 feet apart from each other, okay? But everybody parks, it's sort of in rows, and you can have ushers. Now, I don't know if this would still be, I don't know if he would still do this, but this is what he said to me a week or so ago. Ushers with gloves, gloves on and masks on, passing around communion so that people can participate. With communion liturgy broadcast on Facebook Live. So it's almost like, remember at the drive-in movies, you turned on your AM radio and you tuned in your dial, and that's where or you took one of those speakers and you set it on the window in the car. Does anybody else remember this? Because I sure do. This is like the current version of online communion. Now, let's think about other ways that drive-in communion can happen. Let's say you got your cars all lined up in rows, okay? But instead, this time we're doing it without ushers, without gloves, and without masks. What do people show up with? Well, they can bring bread from home. They can bring grape juice or grapes from home. They can bring what they have that would be communion kind of materials. Additionally, you can find materials that you can buy online, individually wrapped, hermetically sealed, probably put together long before the coronavirus ever hit the planet, okay? So you don't have to worry about that. Untouched by human hands and, wrapped in layers, I'm sure, of cellophane. Those are the kinds of things that are perfect for the hospital, also perfect for communion in a time of coronavirus. So you can mail them to everybody ahead of time. Everybody can get them in their places, or, people could slip their gloves on and whatever, and pick a package. I'm almost envisioning like, when you get a fortune cookie, how they're all wrapped. So, you sort of grab your little package, go back to your car, or maybe they get passed around. People have got their own thing they open up, they do it in their vehicle. Facebook Live, that's you, okay, as the leader. You're on Facebook Live. You're the one leading the service or the communion worship time. So I'm not saying you're going to love these ideas. I'm just saying these are the ideas for you. And I know you're going to use your creativity to tweak it so it fits just right for where you are, whether you're in an urban setting, you're in a rural setting, you have a parking lot, you don't have a parking lot, whatever it is you're going to do. Okay, so that's an idea of everybody being together. Now, let me share with you a couple of ideas where you have people distributed like we are right now. With Zoom, you can pronounce the communion liturgy, and people can use what they have in their home. They may choose symbolic elements. They may actually have bread and grape juice. Now, you can communicate ahead of time to let folks know, hey, next time you go to the store, make sure you get some bread, make sure you get some grape juice so that you have something, or you get grapes, or whatever you can do. If you've taken a youth group on a trip at all, you know that sometimes Triscuits and orange juice is what suffices for Holy Communion elements, or M&Ms, all sorts of things. I think the idea here is that we are in extremis. We want to be as close as possible to the original experience of Holy Communion. We want to be as close as possible to normal. We want to be as close as possible to the way we have done things, because there's a reason for the way we've done things. And we're going to need to be creative, okay? So we want to have communion. We want to have that sense of communion with each other. There's something else that you can do that fits well within the realm of let's make do and let's still be connected. And that's the love feast. So the love feast isn't Holy Communion. There isn't a sacramental liturgy that is proclaimed over the elements. There is a long precedence, however, for Holy Communion. for Love Feast. And the Love Feast has historical precedence in the church. It was recaptured by the Wesleys from the Moravians. It was used frequently in the movement. By the way, this is on the UMC discipleship article as well. So the Love Feast often was a substitute for the sacrament in extreme circumstances, when there was no clergy present, when people were needing to come together, but there wasn't anyone to pronounce the blessings. And it was a way of experiencing the grace of Jesus Christ, the fellowship of the community, the closeness, the meaning of being together by actually sharing together. So in many ways, Love Feast is perfect for where we're at. And it's symbolic. So there's something very nice about that symbolism. And it can easily be done virtually, right? You don't have to make a lot of theological leaps to do this virtually. You can ask folks in their homes to find elements. It might be water, it might be bread, it might be crackers, it might be wafers. Maybe you live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and you folks decide you're going to do enchiladas. I don't know, but you can really be creative here, because the idea is that it's a symbol of love. And it's a feast. Now, bread and water, to me, doesn't strike me as a feast so much. But you should know I come from the Jewish background, where when we do the blessings over bread and wine or grape juice, like, it's hunks of bread. So I never did quite get this little piece of bread, calling it the abundant life. But that's another story. But it's a love feast. So you really can bring that sense of feasting together, sometimes, and it might even move into potluck. So there's all kinds of creative things that you can do to bring people together. And the nice thing about having it distributed is people can share with others in their household at the same time that it's happening together in the online community. I'm going to say one more thing. If you're going to be doing Holy Communion, there are several things you're going to want to have. Write this down. This again comes from my friend Todd Anderson. You're going to want to have a scriptural setting. Okay, you're going to want to make sure that there's a context of worship that's happening. Now, if you're already worshiping online, that's the context. If you're just doing Holy Communion, set the scriptures as the context. You can read from what I just read, Matthew 26, 26 to 30, Mark 14, 22 to 26, Luke 22, 19 and 20, 1 Corinthians, of course, 11, 23 through 29. So to have this scriptural setting for us is very nice. And then, of course, the service of word and table, the communion liturgy found in the United Methodist hymnal. If you're United Methodist, if you are coming to us today from another tradition, first off, you're welcome. I'm thrilled that you're here. Secondly, use the resources that are available to you. Is it the Book of Common Prayer? What are the liturgical resources that you would be using? And then grape juice, likely. I don't know that we're pulling out the wine yet. Those days may be coming, but I think we're still at grape juice. And if you don't have grape juice, you can invite folks to use their best judgment for replacement. The point is that we're participating in the body and the blood of Christ. And of course, bread or crackers, again, using your best judgment. The nice thing about this is that if you're doing it in a distributed kind of fashion, you don't have to worry about who's paleo, who's gluten-free, who will only eat crackers with flour milled in Iowa. You don't have to worry about all that. People are going to choose their own elements, and they will be happy with those. And then, of course, you want to have the clergy leading the liturgy. This is an act of worship. And finally, one of the neat suggestions that I thought was made was take a picture. You can do a screenshot like this, but take a picture. You will want to remember how you folks worshiped when you were in exile, okay? You're going to want to remember this. In fact, I would be documenting this in as many ways as possible, because it's going to make for great scrapbook material, great Facebook posts. And there will come a time when you may be seen as the trendsetter. Others will be coming to you. Hey, pastor, tell us how you did it. Lay leader, tell us how you did it. So do document, do share, put it on your Facebook page, send it to your district superintendent, send it to the bishop. If you are the bishop, send it to your people. Send it out, share what you're doing. Other people will take great comfort in knowing that they're not alone, that they're not going to need to invent the wheel. and they likely will pick up some ideas from you. All right, let's see what's happening in the chat window, because I noticed that there was a bunch of stuff going on here. Okay, so let's see. BYOC, okay, that's the new thing. Bring your own communion. Cokesbury is back ordered on individual sets. Every source checked is back ordered until at least April 20th. Okay. St. Luke's has come out with a liturgy called a communion liturgy for when we cannot meet. Pat, that would be nice if you could put, if there's a link to that, if you could put that in the chat window. I think people would enjoy seeing that. And it's a love feast, bread and water. Okay, and then I'm noting that some folks have emailed the liturgy ahead of time so that everybody could have the reading. So that's very nice to email that liturgy out ahead of time or to post that on Facebook. Make use of the resources that you have to stay connected in times like this. And it looks like there's a note about Amazon is advertising pre-wrapped elements. Yeah, I wonder if there's going to be any price boosting around Easter on pre-wrapped elements. I ordered some little hand sanitizers at the beginning of all of this, and I was really shocked by how much they cost. It's before I really realized what was happening in the marketplace. But if you're thinking about ordering stuff for Easter, I would do that now rather than later. Okay, so Jane's got an interesting comment. I'm interested in learning about how those in prison due to persecution for being Christians celebrated communion. It would be powerful to align ourselves with them and what they've discovered about the sacrament. That's a beautiful thought. If anybody's got suggestions or resources that they can recommend, please put that in the chat window. All right, so what I'd like now, as we begin to wrap up our time together, is to hear what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to do a love feast? Are you going to do Holy Communion? Are you going to reenact drive-in movie theater style? What are you going to do? And and when? Are you going to wait till Easter Sunday? Are you going to, let's see, what's today? Today is the 24th. Yeah, so we've got a whole 10 days or close to 2 weeks before we have our first Sunday. What are you going to do and when? You think you'll do distributed communion? Will you do a love feast? When will you do it? Good question about how to use the palm branches that were ordered. Okay, if anybody's got ideas for Deb, put those in the chat window as well. By the way, thank you so much, all of you, for showing up today. It's really great to have you and to have this community of wisdom where we can share with each other. So the question before us is, what are you going to do and when? Will it be a love feast? Will it be Holy Communion? Okay, some lovely ideas coming through. So let's see what some of them are. Recording a love feast that can be played when families gather. Handing out palm branches as a drive-through along with prayer. Been considering a love feast. Connect through phone tree, Zoom, and video. Probably email it and do it via Facebook, both First Sunday and Easter. I'm assuming God is at least as connected as I am. I will invite people to gather elements for themselves and offer a blessing. Going to check in with the powers that be to ensure blessings, then do communion with liturgy, going to offer communion at each service where I would normally offer communion. Okay, distributed Holy Communion via Facebook, First Sunday, send out liturgy ahead. Okay, and for those of you that are interested in the St. Luke's liturgy for the Love Feast, you can find the email there in the chat window and email and request that. Palm branches as a visual display at the church as a sign of life. And you could even put it behind you when you are doing your Facebook Live. So recorded communion posted online Sunday morning with litany sent out in advance. Maybe our folks will get familiar enough with Zoom for us to do this live eventually. Okay, good. Knowing where your people are at, knowing what you can offer. Still thinking? Having a worship meeting today, will connive with my staff. Excellent. All right, very good. I appreciate the time together. I do want to give you a couple of ideas about things that you can participate in as we are continuing to move closer and closer to Easter Sunday. Do be aware that I am continuing to post the 40 Days of Apostleship blogs. And so far we've had Believe in Divine Partnership, Believe Your Prayers Have Power, Believe in Your Superpowers, and today or tomorrow, Believe Your Life Has Purpose. So those 40 Days of Apostleship are really important because what's happening now, discipleship is all about absorbing and following. Well, the church doors have clanged shut, right? Your people have actually been sent out. And I think it's powerful to reframe it rather than sheltering in place as people have been sent out. And now people are called to be the presence of God, the Christ presence in their homes and in the spheres in which they travel, and to continue to resource your people, not just as victims, okay? Hear me on this, not as victims, not as poor people, don't have resources, but actually to reframe this as moving from discipleship to apostleship is really powerful. Apostles are people that were sent forth. They took the teachings of Jesus, they took the love of Jesus, they took the faith of Jesus, and they made some miracles happen. Your people need that. So I really invite you to reframe the situation in the most positive way possible so that you're seeing how you can equip them and how you can resource them to be in ministry out there. The week that we talked about creative pastoral care and mobilizing missions, that was a deep sense of apostleship. The same thing too. Think about when you're serving communion or love feast, that you're actually empowering your people to be co-creators with God in their settings, okay? Not as poor people, not as displaced people, not as people missing something, but as people who have everything they need to make miracles happen in their setting. Follow me on social media for more tips and apostolic actions and soulful steps. That's another way to keep people together. There are also videos that you can be using in your settings. And I did my first real Facebook Live on Sunday. So I was right out there with you folks. I was doing a Facebook Live. I'm calling it Spiritual Mojo. It's 10 a.m. Mountain Time. It was about 15 minutes. I included a meditation in it. And I was prepared, I was ready, I got done with it, and I just wanted to cry. I was like exposed, out there. And I don't know if any of you felt like that. And then I sort of brushed myself off, picked myself up and thought, well, that was fine. And then I realized that I'd actually pressed the wrong button. It did record, but it was on the wrong Facebook page. I meant to do it on this page and I did it on that page. It took me about 10 hours to realize that that's what happened and then to share it over. So even yours truly, I'm still learning. We're all still learning in this process. And it's good. It's good for us to be on the cutting edge together and to not be the ones who have it all figured out. That means there's space for the Spirit to move and to prompt us. Yes, fail forward and fall forward. Absolutely. And Chuck Knows Church has great new posts going for what's going on. So very good. All right, in the chat window, 3 words or 4 words that describe your takeaway from today. While you're doing that, I want to remind you that tomorrow our topic is pastoral self-care. And pastoral does not necessarily mean clergy. It also means those who are offering pastoral leadership, which is more than just pastors. We're not only going to talk about pastoral self-care, we're actually going to practice it tomorrow. So I really invite you to come because we're going to do some self-care during our time together. We're going to refill our cups. We're going to have some prayer time. We're going to have some heart time. It's going to be good. If you've been meaning to get some self-care in, come tomorrow. This is going to be your time. You'll also get some really good ideas that you can take with you. And you will be blessed by our time together. All right, let's see what the takeaways are. Just do it. Christ is present creatively. Christ is the host always. Jesus is the host, good ideas. Communion's about Christ. You have everything you need to make miracles. Presence is vital still, and focus on apostleship. Being sent out, yes. You have been sent out, your people have been sent out. Who knew when we were reading the Gospels that what Jesus really had in mind was online worship? But here we are, we continue to pivot, we continue to create, we continue to come together with new ideas and to support each other. Thank you so much for being here today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow when we practice and talk about leadership, self-care. In the meantime, you'll be able to find these videos on my website and also on my YouTube channel. If you want to share them with other people or watch them again, feel free to do that. I appreciate you. God bless you. I love you. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye.